Today, I'm putting 3 of the most powerful free AI video generation tools to the test in ComfyUI: CogVideoX, Mochi, and PyramidFlow. We'll dive into their text-to-video and image-to-video capabilities, comparing how they handle different subjects and styles, and by the end, you'll know which one is the perfect fit for you for your creative workflow. Let's go! Let's jump right into the comparison. I'll show you how to install them at the end so that you can decide which ones you actually want to install. First, let's go to the GitHub page. For all of these 3 will be by CogVideoX. First is PyramidFlow wrapper. We'll go to this examples folder, and the one we'll start with is the text to video example right here. We'll do the same thing for Mochi, also by CogVideoX. Go to the examples folder, and we're going to get this one, the 49 frames, 16 GB. And the same thing for the CogVideoX wrapper. We'll go into the examples. If you had watched my last video tutorial on CogVideoX, you'll notice that all of these files have been updated. That's because a few days ago there was a major update. If you're using an old workflow from that tutorial, this update will break every workflow. That's just because there was a new CogVideoX model that was released. So you will need these new examples, and you will need to update your nodes, which I will show you how to do at the end. There's 1.0 models and 1.5 models. We're going to use this 1.5 I2V. So just download those, and let's open each of those in a clean ComfyUI folder. So I'll drag in the PyramidFlow text to V. I'm going to open a new ComfyUI window. Just copy the IP address into a new tab. It's going to clone my window. I'll drag in the Mochi. This is the Mochi nodes. I do the same for CogVideoX. Let's get all of these into the same ComfyUI window. If I hold down Control, I could select all the nodes, and I'll just press Control C to copy it. Go back into the first one, which is the PyramidFlow, and I'll press Control V. If I hold Shift, I can move all of these around at the same time. I'll drag these just below. We'll do the same thing for the Mochi. I'll hold Control to select all of them, press Control C, go back to my original window now with the 2 setups, press Control V, and put this right at the bottom. I'm gonna select all the Mochi nodes again with Control and click, and press Control G, which will allow me to group them just for organization. And I'll do the same for all of them. So to get started, we just have to make sure all of our nodes, all of our models are loaded correctly. Sometimes in the preview, they're named differently. For example, in the Mochi setup, it's using the FP8 T5 clip. I'll just reselect that in my list just to make sure that the file paths are the same. I'll do the same for the model over here. Any of these download models, when you select it, it will download into the file for you if you don't have it the first time you run it. Let's do the same for CogVideoX. Now, the one thing about CogVideoX is it's going to need a few more changes, because if you remember, we actually imported a image to video model. There was no text to video available in the examples folder, but we can convert this image to video fairly quickly. The first thing is these are the load image nodes, these 3. I'm just going to disable all 3 of these nodes, right click and bypass them. We'll have to replace this, so we're gonna disconnect the image condition latents and just add an empty latent. And this will, instead of going to the image condition latents, which it was originally plugged into, we're just going to plug this into samples. Here is where we'll set the height and width for the output. It's set to a higher height and width here from the image resize, the original image resize, but I'll use a smaller one just for the demo purposes. I'll leave it at this resolution. The other thing we have to note, the clip is currently set to FP8. You need to use the FP16 for this to work, and we will be using the CogVideoX I2V model, so just make sure that's selected. Okay, that's it for there. We'll do the same thing for PyramidFlow. If you have used Flux or anything else that uses the dual clip loader, you might have different clip names. So for example, we're going to use the clip L. Mine is named Flux clip L, so just a slight difference, but we will select that. The same thing for the T5 FP16. And the reason why you see the same clip loaders as Flux is because PyramidFlow runs on the Flux model, and it's really powerful. We'll also do the same for the models. The first one is asking for the BF16 V2. Make sure you select that in yours. And the same thing for the VAE, the BF16. Then we should be good to go. So the last thing we have to do is make sure all of the prompts are the same so that we can compare them. And I'll do that up here. I'll put down a text box. we'll set this text box to a set node. And all the set node is going to do is, instead of me having to drag this to each one of the prompt inputs, we can use its accompanying node, the get node. So this is kind of like whatever you set in here, it will get picked up by this. We'll name this prompt, and then we'll set the get node to prompt. So now whatever we set in here, it will send it to here, which will send it to all the get nodes. So I'm going to take this get node down into right click, convert widget to input, convert positive prompt to input. And then this positive prompt input now comes from the get node. Click the get prompt, hold alt, and then drag it down again, because we're going to do the same thing for the CogVideo. And then I'll do the same thing for Mochi. So I'm copying this bustling city. I think that's a great prompt to test on. I'm going to queue it up, and while I queue it up, I'm actually going to move the video output nodes right next to each other so that we can directly compare them. So this is the PyramidFlow one, this is the CogVideo wrapper, and this is the Mochi. And I'll just put them all to the side so that when it generates, we'll be able to see them. I'll come back when this is done and we'll see what we got. Oh, so I got an error, and that's because I actually forgot to change one thing on the CogVideo sampler. It was originally set to I2V, which we could set right here. We're actually doing a text to video instead of image to video. You will actually need to change this model to the CogVideoX 5B 1.5 T to V, and that's where this error is coming from. I also need to make sure my VAE is set to the proper VAE. Might as well check this too, and let's run that again. All right, so here are our results. First of all, I know the most common question I'm gonna get is how long did each of those take, because I did speed up the loading so that you guys don't have to wait through all of that. Mochi took about 4 minutes right here. CogVideoX took about 1 minute 14 seconds. PyramidFlow took about 1 minute and 18 seconds. So there is a significant difference in generation time. All three of them did a great job with this prompt. We expected PyramidFlow to do well because this was their default prompt, just on a different seed. Middle is CogVideoX. That did a pretty good job too. CogVideoX is a little bit steppy. I do recommend adding a rifle. And Mochi's is actually probably the nicest, just because it has a nice camera movement, really nice overall motion. So I'm actually really happy with how that one turned out. Let's use a different prompt. Let's run this and see what we get from all three. Okay, let's check our results. All right, so here we go. And actually CogVideoX looks like it may have done the worst out of all three, just because there's no river. Well, okay, there is. Maybe that's a river. PyramidFlow did a great job. I think the face of the bear is a little funny, but passable. There's a river and, you know, a bear with bear-like movements. Mochi did a really good job. There's a little bit glitchiness on his face at the beginning, but the water and the environment looks really great. So I think Mochi did the best out of the three, with PyramidFlow being second. Really, the test of a text to video is going to be a human subject, because I think they always put some kind of animal or environment. Those always do kind of nice. So let's see what it does with a human subject. I'll go into ChatGPT and just ask for a random prompt so that it's kind of fair. All right, so it gave me a random prompt, which I'll copy and I'll put it into our prompt box. The only thing is I do want to specify if this is a man or a woman. So I'll add the word female in there, and let's run this and see what we get. All right, let's see what we got. Let's start with the obvious. The CogVideoX is a little bit too dark. I guess it doesn't handle this nighttime environment really well. The other two did a pretty decent job. You know what? Let me drag the prompt over here so we can see it. I mean, it called for rain, it called for holographic billboards and, you know, street lighting. Mochi did a really great job with just the camera movement, the overall movement, handling all of this rain, billboard, neon lighting. All of that looks really great. PyramidFlow did maybe second best. You know, it did give us all the elements: rain, city lights, kind of a weird headgear. I guess it did it call for headgear? I guess this is just how it interpreted cyberpunk. All three of them gave us the long trench coat. I mean, I think I'll probably give it to Mochi again for all three of these in the text to video category. It just handled the environment with background characters, the animals, and even a human subject. Probably the best out of all three. But if we switch it up, because probably the most used feature of any video model is going to be image to video instead of text to video. And if we do that, Mochi is automatically out because Mochi only handles text to video. So in a clean ComfyUI, I will reopen the CogVideoX workflow that has the I to V, the image to video nodes enabled, and all the settings for I to V. And we'll actually go into the pyramid flow, visit the GitHub examples page again, and we're going to use this, the image to vid example 768. Now there is another image to vid example. This is if you need a lower VRAM solution, this one will work for you. It produces shorter video and at lower res, but obviously much less strain on your computer. Just for fairness sake, I'll be using the highest available one, but you know, depending on your VRAM requirements, this may be a better option for you. And that's definitely one of the positives of using pyramid flow. They actually have quite a lot of optimization for lower VRAM requirements. So if you have that issue, you may want to check out this. Let's just download this one and I'll open it in a clean ComfyUI. We'll do the same thing. I'll just copy all the nodes, bring them into the CogVideoX node tree and just paste it right at the bottom. And I'll press Ctrl G for a group, and I'll do the same thing for Cog. I'm going to do the same thing as last time. I'm just going to go through, make sure all of my clips match up. And then for the CogVideoX, I'll be doing the same thing here. Let's switch both of these to random just so that, you know, we get, I'll screw around with the seed a little, just so that, you know, we get truly random results. Now, instead, so we'll do the same thing for the prompt box too. Now, since if you're not doing this comparison, you really don't need to do this part. This is just for comparison's sake. You can just edit right into the prompt box itself. And then the last thing is we want it to actually load the same image for both. So they both have this image inputs. For the CogVideoX, right now it's using this resize image, which will stretch whatever image you have into this size. If we just use a different image, instead of the resize image node, we'd use the image resize. So it's got a wrench and the wording is backwards. We can actually change it to crop instead. Downscale if bigger. So I'll use the same image resolution as in this image resize, but I'm actually going to just bypass this image resize completely. And these nodes no longer are being used, so we can just bypass them. So now both workflows are taking this same image. Let's start off with like an environment maybe. It's kind of like a cool alien environment I created a while ago. You know, I'm realizing pyramid flow is also doing the same thing with the upscale image. So it's going to stretch that image into these dimensions, which is not exactly what we want. I'll just use this image resize actually and put that direct into this. I'll do the same thing by dragging the outputs right next to each other so that when they're complete, we can just take a look at them. Let's run this and see what we get. So here are our results. First of all, I don't know why the resolution proportions were so different. I'm going to look into that in a second, but I mean, pretty clear difference here. Pyramid flow got almost no movement. In fact, I don't see any at all. I don't know why. I don't know what happened here. CogVideoX did a much better job. We got some really interesting movement. There's two things that I had to change because I got some errors. The image resize going into pyramid flow, it didn't like it going straight into this pyramid flow VAE encode. I'm not quite sure why. It gave me a tensor error, which usually means some value is not aligning properly. So when I just plug the image resize node into upscale image instead of directly into pyramid flow VAE, it worked. And then I also added the prompt here just to kind of describe a little bit of what motion I wanted to see. So I'm still not quite sure. It looks like it gave me the original resolution of the input image, and that's where this square is coming from. But I'm not sure why it didn't properly go through this resize to crop, and then it had another opportunity at this upscale image to resize. So yeah, that's a little bit weird. Anyway, let's try a different prompt. All right, so I chose this kind of this woman walking through a very like a city ruins. I'll change the prompt to match. So this will be our prompt. Let me queue this up and let's see what we get. Here's our latest image to video. We got pretty good motion on both. Oh, just one thing to note. This is the Cog video with the Rife. You know, we were getting really steppy images before, and it's just because you need to interpolate some frames on it. It only does really 8 frames per second. If you increase the frame rate right here, like this is 16, without adding the Rife, it just makes it really fast and steppy. So with the Rife, it does smooth it out. It makes it a little bit nicer. You can even increase to 3 and then increase the frame rate again, maybe to 24 to match what's happening in PyramidFlow. I do highly recommend you add this Rife if you're using CogVideoX. PyramidFlow has these birds that are flying around in the background. That's really nice. CogVideo might have some better movement on the actual girl, but frozen birds and some weird artifacts in the corners over here. But, you know, I do like that bouncy forward. It does look like she's walking a little bit more clearly than over here in the PyramidFlow. That's really it for our comparison. There are some side things that I wanted to add. CogVideoX and Mochi, the examples that we saw, both produce 49 frames. But Mochi, if you look at the GitHub page, there is an example for 163 frames, which might be a better option if you're looking for longer videos. Just keep in mind that a lot of these are work in progress, so they may change pretty frequently. That's just the world of ComfyUI, and that's exactly what happened to CogVideoX. There was an update. Speaking of CogVideoX, another thing I want to point out is there are a lot of different examples. I won't go into all of them in this video because I did cover a bunch of them I have a separate video about CogVideoX, which I'll put in the link in the description. If you want additional control over your videos, CogVideoX might have some additional options that are worth checking out my other video for, or just going into some of these examples because these are updating all the time and some of them didn't even exist when I did the original video. So it may be worth playing around with. Mochi obviously has no image to video option, so that's a big negative of Mochi, but I think if you are interested in the text to video aspect, it's a real contender. It's also worth noting that PyramidFlow has probably the most flexible options for lower VRAM. So we were using the highest VRAM requirements, which is this 7068 model. If you load up just this image to vid, it actually has a shorter generation length. It only produces, I believe, 6 seconds instead of 10 seconds and a lower resolution, but it's significantly faster and significantly less intense on your VRAM. So that's it for the comparison. I do want to show you how to install these, which we'll get into right now. So if you want to install these, let's start with PyramidFlow. First, you're going to need the PyramidFlow nodes. You go into the ComfyUI manager, hit this custom nodes, and we'll type in PyramidFlow. And it's this one, the PyramidFlow wrapper from Kijai. You install this here to get the nodes. And if you click on this, it'll take you back to the GitHub page. Instead of going into the examples folder, which we had done before, scroll down a little bit to this big update, and it asks you to download 2 models, and then put them into this folder and this folder. Let me open this window first, and you will see this is kind of where the flexibility of PyramidFlow kind of shines. The models that I used for this example were the BF16 V2 and also the BF16, the 768. So the 768 model is the higher resolution one. We will also need the VAEs. So the BF16 VAE is a great option. There is an FP8 version, as you can see here, for if you want to try something with less VRAM requirements. I haven't tested out, but that's what it's designed for. So we will download those 4 folders. If we look at this page again, it'll say to put them into the diffusion models and the ComfyUI models VAE folders. It's also worth noting that you may need to download the clips if you don't have them already. PyramidFlow runs on the Flux models, so it runs on the Flux clips. If you don't have these Flux clips, I'll put a link in the description below. Then restart your ComfyUI and you should have working nodes. Let's move on to CogVideoX. So in CogVideoX, in their main GitHub page, if you had an older version of CogVideoX, including the version I went through in my last video, you will need to at least update the nodes. So if you go into your manager, you go into this custom nodes manager and you type CogVideoX, you'll see this wrapper. Hit this try update button. That will update all of your nodes. You can confirm that you have the latest version, or at least this latest version in your CogVideoX. You will see these Kajai models available in the download CogVideo model. They were not in the previous version. They specifically have the 1.5 after them instead of any of these other ones. That will confirm you have the latest working models. Then if you go into the GitHub page, just make sure that you have an updated example, because if you had an example from previous versions, they may break. All of these were updated with the new update. The fun models are definitely worth checking out for additional controls. I also found I was getting some weird errors. I think other people have run into this based on my comments from the last video as well. The best thing to do is, it'll say in the manager to hit this restart button. That doesn't seem to be enough. I had to do a full computer reset, and then these nodes started working. So if you're seeing any weird errors, restart your computer completely, not just ComfyUI. It is also possible that if you're getting some errors on these specific nodes, I don't know why, for some reason, if you click on them, right click it and hit this recreate button, it also tends to fix some errors. So I was getting some weird errors on this video sampler at one point. I can't even remember the exact error, but if you right click it, hit recreate, it'll lose kind of this bottom like extension, but it may help your error. Last but not least, Mochi is probably the hardest one to install, just because, as it says, all of these are work in progress, but you can't just go to the manager to install this one. Unfortunately, you have to use some command prompt. I'll show you exactly how to do that though. We'll navigate to our ComfyUI folder and go into custom nodes. Once you're in there, if you go into this path bar and type CMD and hit enter, it'll pull up this console window, and we actually have to git clone this. So if you scroll up to the ComfyUI wrapper, go down to code. This is just the path that leads to this page. We'll hit this copy to clipboard button. Back into your console window, we'll type git clone, paste this URL and hit enter. Mine, it says it already exists, but if you don't have this yet, it will install it for you. Then you just restart your ComfyUI, maybe even reset your computer just in case, and that will install the nodes for you. Now, there are some models that you also have to input, which are very clearly marked at the bottom of the GitHub page. So if we scroll down here, if we open this GitHub page, you'll see that you're going to download these models to the the ComfyUI models, diffusion models / Mochi folder. The diffusion models that I had loaded into this Mochi folder was the 08 version. It also says to download the VAEs into this folder right here. So those VAEs are right here. These are the VAEs, these three. I don't believe I used the FP32 at all, so I just did the decoder and the encoder, and I just put them into this folder right here. Then restart your ComfyUI, refresh your ComfyUI window, and the Mochi node should work for you. So that's it for today's video. I hope this gives you some options when it comes to generating video locally on your own computer. For more details on some of the other CogVideoX options, be sure to check out my previous CogVideoX tutorial, but be sure to update with the latest nodes and models from this tutorial because that's an older version. So drop me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.